I'm your host, Reena Friedman Watts, and this is the Better Call Daddy Show.
Hey, this is Big Daddy, Wayne Friedman.
That's my grandpa. Grandpa, you ready for more daddy drama?
My dad is my number one hero and number one fan.
And I'm a pretty cool dude.
All right, season 4, baby, here we go.
More stories you're not going to believe.
And maybe you will after you listen.
5 stars.
5.5 stars, 2 thumbs up.
You are a pretty cool dude.
I love you, Mommy.
Don't stand on the table and damn the public. You'll get some words of wisdom to live by.
Here we go again. Better call Daddy.
You know what your problem is? You like me.
Yeah, I do. Each week, I interview a guest, share the stories with my dad, and then he weighs in at the end of every episode with his wisdom and wit.
Hey, Grandpa.
Everyone from influential players to inspirational fathers, and of course, controversial people.
Grandpa, my mommy's calling.
Creating that legacy one call at a time. And welcome to the Better Call Daddy Show.
Stay tuned.
Where's the music?
Better call Daddy cause he knows you best. Better call Daddy cause he's bringing the test. He sees possibilities. Such possibilities. Better call Daddy, he'll be by your side. Better call Daddy, you're the apple of his eye. He sees all that you can be. All that you can be.
Our lives can take dramatic turns, and then you really see what support you really have. Today's guest, Thomas Craig, has survived a plane crash. He's built his own podcast studio, and he's helping others turn their pain into purpose. Sometimes it takes a little spark and compassion to help others. Thomas, welcome to the Better Call Daddy Show.
So let's see, where do we start with this? Being from Hawaii was a big part of it. And then there was the sales and marketing aspect. I worked for a large global sports brand. I had huge ambitions. I got hired at 22. Being from Hawaii and then getting this job where you travel around the country and set up events, which is mind-blowing. I couldn't have imagined it as a kid. I'm working my way up through the company. I'm thinking, you're going to be here forever, right? Like this, you love this place. You love the people you work with. And then this company buys that company and starts cleaning house. And people start, all my friends start going away and moving to different companies. I started thinking like, wait, what's going on? Is this something I really want to do? I get this job opportunity to go to LA. So I live in LA for 2 years. I'm doing sales out there. It's going really well. I'm now making the most money I've ever made. And I'm like, okay, this is the life. But then there was this part of me that really didn't love it. And it felt like it was soul sucking. I just found myself becoming a little bit more depressed and thinking about my life and what I wanted to do for the rest of it. You know, I knew one day I hope we can all retire, right? And we can kick up our feet and relax. But, I was like, I don't think I can do this till I get to retire. So I started taking private lessons because I had this ambition and a passion of really wanting to fly. My grandpa was a commercial pilot for a brief stint. It was really cool. He got to do it for like 1 year. And then got booted when a bunch of servicemen came back from, I want to say it was like the Vietnam War. At least this is the way he tells it. We'd always talk about how much he loved it. And we'd always talk about planes and aviation. I think that was in the back of my mind. I didn't really make the connection as to why I wanted to do this. Then he sent me an article when I was studying for my private pilot's license out of Santa Monica Airport. And he sent me this article that was like 500,000 pilot shortage by 2024. And this was in 2017. So I was like, oh, okay, maybe this is something I could do for the rest of my life. I knew I liked to travel. I knew I always wanted to adventure and meet new people. And I thought selling the products I'm selling isn't really contributing to the world. It's not really helping in any way. And I don't necessarily feel fulfilled doing this. So I was like, what if I tried to do flying and being a commercial pilot as a job? And I didn't really know anybody that did this growing up. I didn't even think I was capable of doing this. I didn't think I was smart enough, could afford it, and all these different things. I just slowly started asking more questions and finding more people that were doing it, who were at Spirit Airlines and American Airlines, and just started doing a little bit of research. And the more I kind of looked into it, the more I was like, I might be able to do this. This is something I should try. At this point, I was 28, 29. If you're going to make this big life change, why not before you're 30? You're not At that time, I was like, "You're not super young." Now looking back, I was very young. I had all the time in the world, but I thought, "You're getting older, you might as well make this big change." Saved up, left my job, and moved to Colorado from LA, and devoted myself to being this student again in a commercial pilot program, and it was a shocker in a lot of ways. I was well established in this company. I felt like I knew everybody. I was doing pretty well. I went from the marketing aspect to the sales side, and I did well on both sides. But now to go from nothing and being a student again, and also that first flight when I moved to Colorado, the turbulence coming off the mountains because I was flying out of Centennial Airport, which is just a little south of Denver. It shocked me. Holy,
Rocked you a little.
it did, literally and figuratively. I was like, "Holy crap, what did I get myself into? Is this something that, that I made this huge life change?" I had taken a few flights before that, but I'm like, "This is different." The altitude, the wind, the weather. Growing up in Hawaii, you don't think about how the cold temperature is gonna affect you. I'm there at the airport early in the morning prepping the planes, and I'm bundled up more than I've ever been. So, it was this huge change, and somehow I think I know how I did it now, but I found ways to motivate myself and kept going through the program. By the end of it was the thing I was most proud of, that I'd ever done in my life. I didn't think I was an idiot growing up, but I didn't necessarily think I was that smart. All the studying, dedication, and things I had to learn really gave me so much confidence. At the time, I was with my girlfriend. We had moved from LA together, and we both knew we were missing California. She missed her family, and I had a few siblings that were here. I was like, "Okay, we gotta find a way to get back there." So I applied for a bunch of jobs in California and get hired at this San Diego flight school. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is crazy." Now I'm getting paid to fly, and I'm in San Diego, and it's just like, this is the dream now, right? It's like, all I gotta do is build my hours, and I'm getting to a commercial airline. And I didn't have one doubt in my mind I was gonna make it. I was like, "You're 100% gonna make it to an airlines." And about 4 months into the job, yeah, 3 to 4 months into the job, on a flight back from Vegas, which I had done a bunch of times, I wasn't flying the plane, I was just a sitting passenger in the plane. Yeah, we ended up in this crash, and it was, straight out of a movie. It was so mind-blowing, and it felt so unrealistic. I knew that it was a possibility that these crashes happens, but never in a million years would I think it would happen to me. It really was so traumatic and crazy and such a flip of a switch moment.
Do you
And it kinda
actually remember crashing?
up until we made contact, yes. It's weird because when a lot of people talk about traumatic accidents, sometimes you don't really remember it. For me, it's spotty now, but there's a lot I remember. I remember the day of the prep and just things kind of feeling off. They teach you it's up to you if you have these feelings, say no or yes. But when I was looking at the charts on the plane, it all looked fine. But there was nothing to indicate an issue. And yeah, we're going up, and I remember a lot of it. I was sitting in the passenger seat on the left hand door. The door opened up, and the person who was flying, we had doors open up on me a few times. It was never really that big of an issue. You can just reach over and normally grab it. I know it sounds crazy when you're flying, but it wasn't normally a big issue. The way this plane worked was that the doors came up from the sides, like most doors do, but it would kind of lock into place because they were over the wing, which is a little bit different than like a Cessna training airplane where the wings are above and then the doors on the side. Well, the doors were over the wings, but got stuck, and I saw him struggling. I could sense the fear. Telling in, I reached over and said, "Hey, my controls," grabbed it. And as soon as I grabbed the controls, I knew something was wrong. It was just one of those feelings like, for people who've been in a car accident, there's this moment of like, "Oh shit, what am I gonna do?" And I could feel that. I'm looking around and I'm going to all emergency procedures, but it's just not going up. I just look at my altimeter and it's sinking. So I know we're going down. I don't remember this part, but at some point, myself or somebody had contacted the tower and said, "Hey, we have a door opened up. We're having some issues. We're going to come back and land." And I, again, don't remember that, but I remember feeling like everything is going down in a bad way. Just looking out the window, thinking, where are we going to land? It's dark out at night, and just seeing nothing but rocks and dirt. We go down and my face hits the control. I wake up and everything starts coming into focus. There's blood dripping and fire everywhere. And then the sounds come in. and it sounds like pure terror and horror. I see fire everywhere. I had this thought like, if I don't get out of here, none of us are getting out of here. I hit the seatbelt, opened the door, and ran out of the plane. And I'm looking back at it. I see fire everywhere on the outside of it. I don't see anybody coming out of it. I had this thought of, oh my gosh, I don't know what I thought I was going to do, but I was running back to try to help in some way. And a voice, it could be like an angel or something. Now I know it was a guy who saw the crash from the highway, was like, hey, stop, drop, and roll. You're on fire. You're on fire. I had no idea I was on fire. I couldn't feel it. I felt hot, but I couldn't feel it. I don't know if it's because the jet fuel burns hotter, but I was more worried about rolling in the rocks. I thought that would hurt more than trying to put out the fire. Like, I remember that thought, but
Wow.
yeah, but I eventually did. I stopped, dropped, and rolled because I could see it now that the fire on me. After that, I was completely paralyzed from the neck down. My body just shut down. I couldn't move my fingers, I couldn't move my arms, my legs, nothing. All I could do was move my neck enough to look over and down at my body and see across the way that the plane was there. This guy pulls me away from the plane, and all of a sudden, the realization of what had happened starts coming in.
Your
A
mind
million.
was there.
Yeah, it was surreal, but then there's this realization of like, "Oh my god, did this happen? And how did this happen? And why?" All of those thoughts just start flooding in, and the ambulance comes, they wheel me into the ambulance that, for some reason, the way I'm coping is half crying and breaking down, and the other half is making jokes with the paramedic. This paramedic visited me in the hospital when I was kind of in this medically induced coma and befriended my family. And he was like, I had this. He's like, I've just never seen anything like that before. I'm making joke. He's like, I'm going to cut off your pants. And I'm making jokes like, okay, be prepared. Nothing impressive down there. Like all of these things. I don't know why that's the way I was coping with this, but I get wheeled into the hospital, into the ER. And one of my last thoughts before blacking out was, hey, my phone's in my pocket, this is my code, call my dad. And then the next memory I had was like October 15th. So, yeah, that was interesting. I just remember family being around me, everything bandaged, everything in the most intense, unimaginable pain. And then seeing family and friends coming and just thinking, what the heck happened? And from there, was just trying to piece together what my life was.
What did you discover your life was?
A lot. So, yeah, my girlfriend at the time is there. She's now my wife, which I think is this beautiful, wonderful story, and I'm so lucky and fortunate there. But again, yeah, my family's coming in, and my hands are bandaged, so I don't know what shape they're in. I didn't know that they had taken some fingers because of how they were burned. I didn't know what shape I was in. I couldn't talk because I had a tracheotomy. So I can't, at this point, I can't get out of bed. So I can't walk. I can't talk. I can't breathe. I'm hooked up to all these ventilators and I can't eat. I was so independent. Now I can't do anything for myself, and it just breaks me. I was the lowest I had ever felt. I'm still trying to grip with how did this happen to me? I couldn't have imagined that this could happen because I had so much belief in myself after graduating flight school. I just never felt better after doing this. And all of a sudden to be at this point where you can't do anything for yourself was just crazy. But family starts coming in from all over the country, a lot of from Hawaii. I have aunts and cousins from Virginia that are coming. I'm so thankful, but I'm
You're like,
also
haven't seen you guys in a while.
yeah, exactly. And then there's old coworkers that I hadn't seen in years, relatives and friends, and all these people that are kind of coming in one by one.
It's a bit
They're
overwhelming, I'm sure.
it's so overwhelming,
Oh
and
my
a lot.
god.
Yeah, it's so overwhelming. And they had told my family in that first kind of week, like, we don't know what his life's going to be like. He has a less than 10% chance of surviving this.
I
So
feel
my
like those are
parents,
things you should never say.
this is all hearsay because I'm
Yeah.
completely knocked out. Some of the stories that my wife and my mom have told me of what the doctor said, it's like those crazy things maybe you hear in movies, maybe they shouldn't have said it. I think there's a lot of things that they probably shouldn't have said, and there's a lot of things that they just wouldn't tell them either. But they didn't tell them when I was getting those first life-saving surgeries, like what was going to happen to me. They didn't tell them the possibilities of the results. They just said, hey, this is the surgery we did. And I think in
Did
Nevada,
you have to sign off on that?
I couldn't sign off. And I think Nevada is what's called provider's choice. So they didn't even have to tell them what they were going to do in the surgery. They were just taking fingers, doing whatever they can
You're
to
like, "I don't agree
constitute
to
will.
that."
But I
Yeah.
couldn't.
Oh my
Consciously,
god.
I wasn't there to even ask questions. And physically, I couldn't get words out for the first month and some change. Like my hands again are bandaged, and my parents made this board of all these different things like eat, call nurse, that kind of thing. So I could point at it. But that's all I could do. It was completely everything was out of my control. And a lot of it was out of my family's control too.
Did you ever talk to them about that? That must have been really hard for them.
With
Just,
my family,
"This is what the doctor says and no choice." I feel like that would be so hard for parents.
it is so hard for them. I think it still is a tough thing that they have to deal with because they couldn't. They're there, but they can't make any choice.
Ah,
There's certain things they can ask, but up until that first month, like a lot of it was out of their hands. And I think they were so shell shocked too from this happening that their mind was scrambled. They're trying to make the best decisions they can, but they're like trying to think about my future and all these decisions. And I think it was so overwhelming. So I give a lot of credit to them, but I also give a lot of credit to my wife because she became this rock and was like, "Hey, why are you doing this?" She became this person that was advocating for me. And they were like, "Wait, who are you?" At the time, she was my girlfriend, and they wouldn't let her even come in the room or make decisions. So she just said, "I'm his wife." And started making these fantastic decisions that have really increased my quality of life. But without her, I don't know if I would be in as good a shape as I am in, but also with my parents too.
wow, I love that she knew you before and that she was with you through it all. That is amazing. She's like an
Yeah,
angel.
absolutely. I'm so fortunate. I'm so lucky. Yeah. And, we'd gone through these different challenges too. And I'll be honest, I'm 20 years old. I'm going to be a pilot. I feel like I'm in great shape. We'll see how this relationship goes.
Guy was a
We'll see.
stud, yeah.
Yeah, and I loved her and I really wanted to treat her well, but I was like, maybe we'll get married. Like, not
You
that
were
I
young.
exactly. Yeah, I was young and I felt like I was on top of the world and I just didn't know how that relationship was going to go. So now looking back, I was so fortunate to have her in my life and still am. I'm glad I didn't screw anything up enough in that process to not get married now.
Wow,
Mhm.
that's real.
So I'm in this process, I'm about 70% second, third degree burns. My back is fractured. I've lost limbs. I have a bunch of broken bones. I know I'm messed up and I know I'm in so much pain. I'm on every type of drug you can think of, lauded, ketamine, fentanyl, all at the same time. And I'm in so much pain. None of it helps. The only thing that I can kind of get some relief from is to sleep. And you're forced to sleep because your body is healing and repairing. Then I'm stuck in these dreams and it's just nightmares, and so I think for the first couple months, that's what I remember the most is these nightmares I'm having, and it's terrifying.
I cannot imagine that, like, you probably thought about it more than once.
Oh, definitely, and the thing is, like, because you're so sedated, you can't get out of these dreams, so being stuck in some nightmares, I think it really does just change, how I thought, and it still changes this whole process has changed a lot, like, the way I look at life, it just changed my whole perspective. So I'm healing up. I get moved from Las Vegas to San Diego. I'm immediately admitted back into their burn ICU because I'm in no shape to go home. I start feeling like this is where my physical healing journey starts kicking in. They're wonderful. It's a great hospital. I still am in contact with a lot of people there. I'm getting in better shape and finally good enough to go to a rehab facility. I go there for a couple weeks. I'm probably in the best shape, but I'm still really, really messed up. Your burns and your scars don't heal for a couple years, so it's still a long journey from there and years. Yeah.
You're just glossing over that. That's a long time.
Yeah, it's funny because it was kind of a weird blur too because right when I got out of the hospital, COVID happened. So now everybody, including me, is going through this really weird point in life, right? Like everybody's kind of on lockdown, and I've been in lockdown now for about 7, 8 months. It's this weird transition, but it's not lost on me that everybody's kind of going through something too. I see family members, I see friends, and they're all like so confused, and everybody's trying to share their information. And there's the people who are like, this is what the science is saying, and this is what the news is saying. And then there's people that's like, well, this is what Facebook's saying, and this is what, my aunt's cousin's uncle is saying, like there's that information too. And so I think it's confusing for everybody. And for some reason, I have this kind of realization that we're all going through something really traumatic, really hard, and it's really confusing. But I don't know what to do with this yet. It's like I find comfort in this way that we're all kind of at this point of loss and anger and confusion. I don't know. It's just this thought that's going through my head.
I can't even believe that you were able to think bigger than yourself with all of what you were going through. And then I don't know if you can talk about this, but like I did read the news report or whatever. You were not alone on the plane. So can you talk about that at all?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really wanna talk too much about the other people involved, and they've had, there's families involved there, and there's their own trauma, but I would just say that it did add another element to everything that I went through, and there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about those people. But yeah,
Can you
I'll
talk
keep
to
it at
those
that.
people at all?
Again,
Really talk about that? That's
yeah,
fine. I was just like, oh my God, that's a whole nother layer.
yeah, definitely. And,
Wow.
it's just crazy timing,
With what's happening in the news.
exactly. With so much aviation accidents and stuff.
Oh my god, what goes through your mind about that? Do you still fly?
I haven't been able to fly. There's still surgeries I'm having to this day, 5 years later, and getting your medical license, in addition to just getting your pilot's license and your certificates, is really strict. There's so many layers to it. It's beyond just your regular physical. Not only that, because of how I was injured, my eyes were kind of burned and have scars and stuff on it too. So just from a visual standpoint, it'd be tricky, but there was a lot of mental challenges there too. And I think it's something I'm still repairing. And I think we'll eventually get there, but it's leading into a podcast I'm doing now. I think I'm still in this exploration of trying to help myself or heal myself from a mental and emotional level. But yeah, we're still there. When I see the news though, it just kind of breaks my heart. It's such a crazy situation to be in. And it's one of those things. It is so safe statistically when you look at it, and yet it happens more than you think. And I think without even knowing those people, it makes me feel connected to them, and my heart kinda goes out to them in a lot of ways.
That's sweet. I have to say, like, every time I cross the threshold onto a plane, I am starting to pray. I don't pray that often, but every time I get on a plane, I pray. Did you have any spiritual connection during that?
Yeah, so it's weird. I know this is gonna sound opposite to a lot of people, and I think maybe some people don't understand it, but I grew up in a very religious household. I went to a Christian private school growing up, and we had, like, mass on Mondays. I was on church on Sundays. I had Bible study on Wednesdays, so I grew up in a very religious surrounding, and a lot of my life was, when you get to these hard moments, you rely on faith. Even my mom to this day, she works at a preschool at a church. She goes to church every Sunday, and my aunt very much that way. And I'm sitting in the hospital room right after it happens, and I'm hearing them talk, and my mom's reading me verses, and it does give me comfort. But my aunt says this thing, and she's like, "One day you're gonna be thankful this happens." And I got so mad about it. I was like, "Why the hell would you say that to me?" It got me so mad, and then I started thinking about God and how this stuff happens to people. I really felt like I was doing my best. I wasn't a perfect person by any means. I did a lot of things that I'm not proud of now, but I was just a young kid trying to figure out my life, enjoy my life, and still trying to think about how I'm going to contribute to this world. But I was like, "Why did this happen to me?" Since then, it's kind of put this conflict in my head about religion, my faith, what is life about, and what kind of God we have. I still believe there's this spiritual force out there that can enact things in our life and is present, but I also feel like there's more personal onus on me now to do things. I don't feel like I can rely on a God per se to get things done or to that things can work out. I think it's kind of put this damper for me personally on the way I look at the religion or the faith I had. And yeah, it's something I'm still figuring out from this process. It put this huge wrench in my own faith.
Trust me, I can understand why. I think I would also be like, "What the heck?"
I feel like I am doing a lot better, but no part of me feels like I'm back where I was before. I never felt more at the top of my game than right after graduating flight school. With all the study I had to do and my ability to learn, I was confident. I've always been curious person. I've always been a person who's if I'm interested in something, I'm going to dig into the research. I don't know too many people who are more into researching things than I am. I really had a lot of confidence in my ability to learn things. And then also mixing it with always being a physical person, knowing athletes, my dad always being this athletic person, just felt like all my worlds are connecting at this really high point. I think it's this exploration of trying to figure out who I am now, what can I still do both physically and what I can still do mentally and emotionally. Sorry, kind of going back to your point, I don't think I'm in a place to fly. And I can't imagine getting into a small plane and flying right now. I think it would still be too hard for me. I'm not going to say never, but maybe one day, not right now.
That's fair. You did mention your dad a couple times, and this is the Better Call Daddy show. Did you get a hold of your dad after the accident? And what did that conversation look like? How was your all's communication changed through this? That's super interesting.
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot has changed for us. I wasn't able to call him as I was getting wheeled into the hospital, but the doctor did. He typed in the code, gave him a call, and my dad says it was like one of those surreal moments. And my mom was right there with him. What happened? Where is he? They immediately tried to get on a plane and flew out there. One of the first conversations, which it wasn't really a conversation because I couldn't say anything. My dad is sitting there, he's sitting in the room. It's a completely dark hospital room. All the machines, all you can hear is the beeping. I see my dad in the chair and I'm trying to get his attention, but I can't say anything. So I'm pounding on the hospital bed. And he comes over and I don't even remember specifically what he says, but it was the most caring I had ever really seen my dad up to this point. And not to say that we had a bad relationship. I loved him. I did respect what he did. We had worked at the same company, and for that company, he's gonna make 38 years. So he's really established there, and everybody knows him, and he's kinda got his own legacy. In my professional career, I felt like I needed to do just as good as him, or if not better, but my own way. So it felt like I had to prove something about myself. It's like, yeah, my dad's awesome, but my way still works and you could still be successful. And I think that was there whether I told him or not. There was always this kind of competition. I had worked for him when I was in college and we butted heads the whole time. With that being said, we get to this point and he's in the hospital and I can't do anything for myself again. I started seeing this different side to him and he cares. I just needed him there. And it became so childlike for me. And it kind of brought me back. He's always been this amazing worker and he cares about his job and the people he works with. And he's so caring and optimistic and positive too, which I think in some ways I get it from him. There was a lot of contention where it was like, why isn't that coming from me? Why do I not get that same care you show for your accounts or your clients and the people you work for? I see it at this moment when he's in the hospital. And we had all these moments and so many more conversations as it goes on. And I'm starting to get better and I'm starting to use the walker to get around. They're showing him all these little things that I'm doing because he has to go back to Hawaii and somebody has to keep working. He's flying back and forth from Hawaii to Las Vegas or Hawaii to San Diego. And I just, at this moment, I can't help. Everybody is just kind of getting the truest, rawest version of me, good and bad. Like, there's moments where I'm kind of ashamed of what I'm saying, but I'm so loaded up on these drugs and everything that I ever had a issue with somebody or the hard moment with them, I'm just saying it.
Oh,
And so
that
being
must have been in some ways like a good release.
let me tell you, yes, it is crazy. There's no filter, and I've never been that way. I've always been, better not to say it and better be polite because I don't want to hurt people's feelings. And it's very much Hawaii culture too. Like you kind of hold it in, and I'm just a funnel.
God, that
It's
would have been
going.
awesome to film.
In some ways, it was great, but in some ways, I was like, "What?" Looking back at it now, I didn't say it with kindness always. I purely just said it to get it out, even maybe to hurt people's feelings sometimes, just because I'm like, "You did this to me." And so we have those conversations.
Oh my god, I'm jealous in a way. I bottle so much up. That's freaking awesome.
Now I realize so
You're
much of
like, "I
us
gotta make some
do.
apologies later."
And that's kind of been where I'm at too. Although I will say I'm a lot more open now. I don't hold it in as much. For me, it's all
Wow.
where it's coming from, right? Like, are you coming from a place of anger or are you coming from a place of like, I really care about you and this really hurt me. So we got to figure out how to move past this. And I think that's where me and my dad got to because of some of these conversations. Didn't
Have
re-
really helped your relationship grow.
oh my, so much, so much. The way I look at him now and our relationship now, and the way I respect everything that he did. I didn't understand it as a kid. I didn't always see him. So I felt like, why are you leaving us and spending all this time with people who don't really matter? I look at it in such a different way now. And what he was able to do for our family and where he came from, being one of six and growing up in a trailer and experiencing being a Japanese guy in Wyoming in the 60s and 70s wasn't always really easy. I really had this sense of I understand you a lot more now. And I'm so thankful he did what he did. Think it helped mend our relationship in so many ways. I call him a lot more now and we say I love you, which he had told me a little bit growing up, but we didn't hug each other. We didn't do it. We were men, and you suck it up and you get things done. But it's really changed for us in a lot of ways. And I think in a lot of good ways too.
That's tremendous.
Yeah.
Seriously, I just got goosebumps from that. That is so good.
Oh, yeah. All of this stuff was also side effects of this thing happening, right? And again, I'm not one of those people. It's like, I'm so glad this happened. I don't wish this happened still. There's moments I'm still sad about. There's moments I'm still mad that this happened. But it's not lost on me the good moments that have come up from it as well, right? Like that with my dad, with my mom. My mom is an absolute saint. She left her job in Hawaii and was there at the hospital in Vegas for me 24/7, along with my girlfriend. And they would switch off shifts. During the day, my mom would be there, and at night, Christina, my wife, would come there. And then they would, because I just emotionally couldn't be by myself.
You
It was
needed a
just
friend.
I really just needed someone. I became like a baby, emotionally just stripped down, and she was just with me through it all and so patient and nothing a mom should probably do for a son who's in his 30s at this point. There's so many, kind of embarrassing things for people, but I just couldn't function. I couldn't do anything. And she just was there and was this rock for me. And then, after the hospital, pretty much was with me and my wife full time because of COVID. And she couldn't get back to Hawaii and there was all these restrictions and that kind of stuff. And so she kind of helped transition me back home. Her patience and her, I think, really getting to know me too, because she had this vision of me before I left Hawaii. After I left in 2011, I would visit, but I never moved back. So she had this idea of a post college Thomas, but she didn't know me as an adult. And even that, I think that relationship really grew. There were so many moments where I didn't say things as nicely as I could to her, but now our relationship is better than ever. I just appreciate her so much. She's truly a saint, one of a kind.
Incredible. Wow, I love that. Even doing this project with my dad, it's so crazy to have a project with your parents in your
Yeah.
adulthood. Years.
Yeah, you were the first guest we had on one of my other podcasts, and you really gave me confidence. Like, maybe we could bring people on and just talk to them. And my confidence was so stripped down at this point, and this was just this fun thing that I really wanted to do. You listening to your podcast and having you on, I just thought, wow, what an amazing thing you're going to always have this record of talking to your dad, especially with this really crazy insight from amazing people. I just thought this is wonderful for you. Do you feel that way yourself?
It's totally changed both of our lives. I wanted to share my dad's wisdom with the world, but everybody else sharing their wisdom with us and what they've overcome and the lessons they've learned in their own life, my dad actually looks forward to it. He's like, "Do you
Oh,
have any stories for me to listen to, react to, learn from?"
yeah.
Yeah, it's something so positive. You can learn something from everyone you talk to.
Could not agree more. Your dad's well-spoken and he has amazing positivity and wisdom. I think you naturally gain wisdom as you get older, but he has solid understandings of topics. If I could have 1/4 of that confidence in how life is supposed to go, I'm gonna feel good about where I'm at.
Thank
He's
you.
just
I feel
awesome.
like you have that. You're so well spoken. And it's hard for me to even believe that at one time you weren't confident.
Yeah, it was so stripped down, and I didn't realize how much of my confidence in some shallow way came from the way I looked, and not having like, I lost almost both of my ears, I lost a bunch of fingers, having most of my body burned and scarred up. It was so tough, and it was like, how am I ever gonna go back out into the world? I just felt like a monster. And I remember there was a point where I was trying, you see it in the movies where there's those 2 bars and people have to walk when they're in physical therapy. Like, I was on one of those things and there was a mirror to me, and I looked at the mirror and I just broke down. I just was really like, "Oh my god, like, how and why do I look like this?" And it just was like, I can't believe what's staring back at me in the mirror. It was so tough. And, I'm now 50 plus surgeries and procedures later, but there was so much of, like, putting my body back together, and I still felt self-conscious, and so I'm going through these surgeries, and I'm doing this podcast with my friends. Truthfully, this was another part of me healing. We started during COVID, we're playing video games and having these conversations, and it makes me forget what's going on with me in the world. I'm just having fun. We're kids again. We're playing, we're joking, and I'm like, "Well, let's just record this. Let's see what happens." And, the joystick show forms, but then there's this element of, like, re-engaging with the world, and people are talking about video podcasting, and I'm like, "God, do I wanna be on film?" And that just adds another layer of being nervous and being scared. I don't like the way I look, and I'm still getting put back together. And, yeah, we meet you through the online podcasting community, and, yeah, you answered the call when we were looking for guests, and that first conversation with you was so fun. It was so uplifting, and it just what the podcast was about in my mind, you matched the whole tone and ethos of the brand. It gave me a lot of confidence.
Thank you. I think when you surround yourself by best friends or by parents or by somebody who really knows you or interacts with you, it's such a different vibe.
It is, and also just accepts you. They accept you for who you are and the good, bad, and the ugly. I had so much of that at this moment. Friends, family, and all these people who showed up or sent nice messages. Some of them I thought just didn't like me. I thought some people who just straight up hated me showed up at the hospital or wrote me messages and stuff. And it was like, wow, you really never know what people think about you at all.
I had a 3-pound preemie. And when
Oh,
I
wow.
had a baby at 3 pounds and 7 weeks early, people came out of the woodworks that I hadn't heard from in a really long time. It's interesting when you go through something abnormal or could be considered a tragedy or something that you're suffering through, people treat you differently.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think that everybody can relate to a unfortunate situation,
Yeah.
right? Like, you put yourself in their shoes and you're like, "Holy crap, what if that happened to me?" If it can happen to that person, maybe it could happen to me. Also, just knowing you on and off the podcast, you're a caring, inquisitive, wonderful person. I'm sure people would resonated with that. Even if you didn't have a great interaction with them all the time, it's like, I think people know who you are at your core. Some people can see your heart, right?
Thank you.
And yeah, I think that's what came through for me too. People can relate to it. And at your core, if you're not a complete asshole to people, they're going to show up and support you, right?
If you wanna make up with me because I had a 3-pound baby, cool, let's do that.
If there's not a good reason, look,
Glad that made you reach out or whatever. Like,
I
hopefully I
mean,
don't
if
have
it,
to do that again.
I know things aren't like Love Actually. Just because it's Christmas, you're not going to reach out to the person you've been pining over forever. So I think tragedy does bring people together. Now that I've been speaking publicly about my mental health struggles or some of the lessons I learned through this process, the people who've reached out are people I would have never expected. They're like, "Hey, man, I've really been struggling with that too." I'm like, "Oh my god. 1, I haven't talked to you in years, and 2, like, dude, thank you for sharing that, but also, okay, we're not alone." It's people who are like, "You guys are rocks. I can't imagine something would emotionally affect you, and then they say something, you're like, "Damn, this is something everybody can relate to."
It's
Yeah.
so crazy. Sometimes you'll cover a story, and then somebody with a very similar story will reach out to you that you had no idea that happened to them. That's happened to me so many times with the podcast. When I covered Hunter Biden's ex, when she found out she was pregnant, he was out the door.
Wow.
And I had
Yeah.
somebody that I was friends with from Chicago who that was happening to her daughter. And she messaged me privately and was like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna read that book." And I'm like, "Awesome." And then it reconnected me with her and like I felt so invested and I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry that's happening to your daughter." Or a girl I went to school with in elementary school, I interviewed this girl on my show and the babysitter abused the girl who was on my show. I interviewed this girl, Felicia, and her babysitter's boyfriend had abused her. And then a girl that I grew up with that I hadn't talked to, she was the only girl in my class from kindergarten to fifth grade. She reached out to me privately and was like, "Felicia's story is my story." I was like,
Oh, man.
"What? I've spent the night at your house all growing up. Is that why you got married right out of high school?" Like
Right,
crazy
right.
stuff.
Yeah, yeah. It is so crazy, and you never know where, like, or who it's gonna touch. You never know what your story is gonna bring, and I think that's kind of what I'm discovering now too from this, but yeah, it just allows this platform for people to be seen and understood and maybe learn something about themselves. But it's also funny when you hear these stories, to your point, you start maybe, and I'm not a mental health professional, but it's like you gotta psychoanalyze people sometimes. You're like, "Oh, that's why you did that thing. Like, that's why you got married so early, or that's why you drink way too much," right? Like, it's like you're like, you get it more. Now the thing for me, not being a mental health professional is like, don't judge. Like, I get that a lot too. It is an eye-opening and weird experience in some ways, but it's also humbling experience. It makes me feel honored.
Somebody even said to me, "Thank you for making a ripple in this fucked up world." I was like, "Okay, that could be a byline." I'm glad that's what you see my show as. But it's true. If you are trying to spread positivity and be a friend to someone and give them a platform to let loose and not judge them, we need more of that. There are so many people that are lonely and so many people that really are going through like crazy healing journeys.
Couldn't agree with you more. Yeah, I think that's kind of where this new podcast I'm doing came in. It was an idea I had for years. And I was like, I'm doing these pop culture shows and we're talking movies and shows and a bunch of nerdy stuff. And I love that. That's still a part of me. But there's this element of, why are people so sad? Why are people so unhappy? They're healthy. They have enough money to live and go on small trips or nice dinners, and their family is all good. I just see them so sad and angry online, and it broke my brain because this terrible thing happened to me. I have all this emotional baggage now and things I'm dealing with, but I still realize that there's great things. I still realize that we can be positive. Great things came out of this very traumatic accident. So why don't you see how good your life is? And it kept bothering me. And I was like, there's got to be something out of every tragedy, out of every dark moment. There can still be hope. There can still be positivity. There can still be a new perspective that maybe we're not taking into account. I'm seeing all this black and white thinking, this is great, this is bad, this is awesome, this sucks. No, there are elements of both. Can we start talking about that more and looking at maybe there's something good in this situation? I just felt like, hey, I'm going to try to make this podcast. Truthfully, I was so nervous about it. And my 5-year anniversary from my accident was coming up. And I knew I was going to do this video for it, just kind of talking about some of the lessons I learned over the last 5 years, about who I am and what I think life is about now, especially being so close to the edge and just not living. And how do you approach life when you have nothing anymore? You lost everything, except I know I still have my family and everything, but my whole career path, my identity, all of that is just gone in a click of a button, right? I do this video and I'm like, do I even say this part? I'm going through the script and I'm asking my wife, do I even say this part about wanting to launch a podcast? Some part of me doesn't want to put that out there in case people are like, when are you going to do it? She's like, if you don't say it, you can't do it. If you really want to do this podcast, you have to put it in the video. You have to say it. I'm like, okay, let's go. I release it the morning of the live versary, we call it now. And all of a sudden messages start flooding in. I was like, I'm not going to check my phone. I'm just going to post it and let the day play out and try to not focus on all these emotions that come up from the accident. We go to my friend's birthday party and people who had seen it had showed up. All they could talk about was this video and like, man, this hit me so hard. I'm getting all these messages like, thank you for sharing and so happy you're here. When's the podcast happening? When's the podcast? Oh, I'm like, oh shoot. All right. I put it out there in the world. Now let's do it. This guy I had known back when I was working at the sports company who was getting into aviation around the time that I was in. I took him flying a couple of times. Was like, "Hey man, I do videography for all these things." He's this badass videographer. He's like, "I work with this studio in San Diego. You should come check it out. Maybe it's a great place for you to do the podcast." I was like, "Yeah, of course." It's not kidding, 10 minutes from where I live. Had no idea it was there. Drive over there, meet
That
with their
feels a bit
buddy.
like God.
Destiny, kismet, just meant to be, maybe God. I'm not going to deny that, but it's just like, wow, this is crazy. So we have the conversation. I tell them what I want to do, and they're like, yes, let's do it. We got you. Let's do it here. I'm self funding this is all out of my own pocket just because I feel compelled to do this. Not even planning on making a dime from this. They're like, all right, we're going to work out with you. We're going to get you a deal. And we kind of start concepting the show. Build originally, I wanted this small little podcasting room. They're like, no, we're going to build out the whole room. I start building out the walls and logos, and now we've recorded a few episodes, but it's happening
I
and
am
it's out
so
there.
excited for you. That is freaking awesome.
Thank you. It's weird because when you grow up, you do think, yes, you want the prestige, you want this really cool job, but part of that has to be money too, right? And who doesn't want, like, I want to get more money for every job. I want to get promoted and make more money. You have this
Yep.
idea, right? Like you can relate to it.
Oh my God, I struggle with that too, for sure.
Was so interesting for me, and I've always been that way. My dad being a business person for 40 years and always working and not having a dime growing up has always been like, how much money you're going to make from this? One thing that changed for me with my accident was it stopped being about that and started being about like, what's your purpose? What do you really want to do with your life? I'm a big fan of Simon Sinek, and it's like, start with your why. I started thinking, what's my why? And it really became, I want to show people that there are good things that can come out of any situation. There's positive that can come out of even the worst moments in your life. And it could create happiness and truthfully give you a lot of success in your own life and give you peace. I think we overlook how wonderful it is to not have such a stressful job, but just have peace and contentment and feel like life is good. And this podcast was one of those things where it was like, I don't really care if we make a dime from this. I just feel like I have to get these stories out there. And yeah, that's kind of been the way I've been going with it.
That's fantastic. I'm wondering if after you interview some of these people that you said, oh, after I hear their story, I feel like what I've been through isn't that bad, if it will help you love parts about yourself more and help you get even more confidence.
Oh, I think so. I mean, already just a couple people I've recorded and some of the pre-interviews I've done with some of the guests coming up this week. I'm like, you guys inspire me so much. Your perspective on your own trauma and this crazy situation on so many elements. Like people only think about the car crash, the plane crash, right? But you don't think about how that affects family. You don't think about how that affects your job moving forward. You don't think about the way it affects you living your life, right? You think about just that moment, how scary it is. But the ripple effects is what's the challenging thing, I think. Like it's the part that's harder because now you're trying to reckon with who I used to be and who I am now. And how do these two worlds then coalesce? And how do I then proceed with a whole new mindset, a whole new perspective? Family may not recognize you beyond your physical appearance. Friends might not understand you anymore. Old coworkers, right? Like you used to be this certain way and now you're not that way. I think it's beyond the physical confidence for me now. It's more about this story has to be shared. And if not me, then who? Like, why not feel like I'm just compelled to do this? Maybe I'm still not as great a speaker as your dad.
You're
Guessing
amazing.
on the
I'm
show.
thinking, like, when's the TED Talk?
No, I just think
Yes.
I'm one of those people that always thinks they could do better. And I know I have so much ways to go and I know I could be a lot better. But anyways, I think it's just compelled me to try to get these stories out because there's so much wisdom and wonderful messaging from these other people. And I get it from your show too, that I'm like, God, you really can learn something from anybody.
Thank you. Is there anything that you wanna learn from my dad? He's gonna love your story.
Oh, yeah. So I was thinking about it. One thing that I always ask on my show now is what gives you peace?
Love
Currently, I want to know what's giving you peace, but I also want to know what he thought was peace when he was younger. Like, what did he think, like, being content and having this true peace of your life, like when he was younger? Because for me, it's a lot different pre accident than it is post accident.
Did you even really feel peace or, like, get after like, going after peace?
No, I mean, it was a thought that could be there. But no, I don't think I had it. I don't think I understood contentment. I wanted to be eating at the nice restaurants or in LA hanging with the cool kids or making X amount of money. Or I don't think I understood what contentment and peace was until you're in a hospital room and you can't go outside and you miss the sun and you miss just sitting on the sand at the beach, or you just miss being in the backyard, just sitting and having a drink with my girlfriend or now my wife. One of my favorite things to do now is taking my dog for a walk and listening to podcasts. Would be nothing I would have thought I would do with my time, and yet every day it's the biggest treat for me. It's where I'm the most at peace and the most happy compared to when we go on trips and just relax and be with the people I care about.
That's fantastic. Yeah, it's funny because somebody recently asked me, like, how would I define success? I'm like, being able to, like, go have a random coffee with a friend, listen to a podcast on a walk on my treadmill in the middle of the day, being able to make my own schedule. You
Yeah.
can always take 1 or 2 more clients, but that is peace. That is success. Like, it's
Yeah.
so funny, and back in the day, that would not look like success for me.
Right. Oh my gosh. I can relate to that so much. So 100%. Yeah.
It definitely changes, your why changes over time. I think it's important to even continually ask yourself what your why is. It's funny too, like my dad's why, I feel like, if I can't even come up with my own, is he says, his legacy is tied to his parents' dreams and the dreams of his children. And I think that that's
Wow.
really unique. Like, you don't even have to have your own. It can be tied to why you think you're here.
Yeah, exactly. That is a unique way to look at it. I think especially these days, we're so individualistic in some ways. I just think we're kind of driven by, I can make this, I can do this. Me, me, me in some ways is like my family will be proud based off what I did. But before in previous generations, if I could make a better life than my parents had and give my kids a better life than I had, that's what success is. Right. And things are constantly changing. And I think there's elements of that that are still beautiful. But we have to, I don't think based on what I went through, there would be any type of success if I don't find ways to help other people outside of my own life. I'll never feel like this accident will be worth it and what I went through without giving something back to others. I think we're truly at our happiest and most fulfilled when we are doing things for other people. Like,
My
yeah,
dad will definitely agree with you on that.
again, this is why we connect. I'm listening through your episodes. I love this guy. He's the best. So I can't wait to hear what he says about the whole peace aspect
Thank you so
of
much,
this.
Thomas.
You've heard from my mom. Now, let's switch it over to Grandpa.
Thomas Craig.
Wow. He doesn't even realize it, but he has taken it to the next level, as we have found out from our own podcasting together, that to be able to overcome something so horrific and tragic, and then be able to overcome his own demons, and where he's willing to help other people overcome their demons and be able to have some type of positive fulfillment in their lives, is an incredible story. And it really takes you out of that mode where people are in a rat race to get ahead, where they're working their asses off. They're buying things for themselves, living in this materialistic world, and you're running this race. And then you find out later in life, as you know, with my own mom, where material things have no value, where the politics of the world that she was so much involved in has no value. To want to know about the business anymore, she's not interested in her TV shows or going to the movies or even going shopping. That was one of her favorite activities. None of that interests her anymore at 96 years old. The only thing that really matters is if people love her and want to see her and want her to still participate in some form of activities with her. And Thomas learned a perspective that this tremendous accident that occurred to him, and where maybe even what, 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 20 people even survive that. And even with surviving it, it took really the rallying point of his family to really be there for him, because it was almost like he was a newborn, as he's quote unquote, where he couldn't do anything for himself. And how discouraging that can be when he just finished flight school and where he thought he had his whole life planned out in front of him. And then a disaster occurs, and you've got to be able to figure out how to even mentally get through this. And I think I mentioned to you the other day, there's a policeman that was saving people from the October 7th calamity in Israel, where he was rescuing people, and I think he killed several, if not more than a dozen, Hamas terrorists. And yet he the tragedies that he witnessed and the not understanding that he had some mental issues with why me? Why am I still alive? And everything that he had experienced mentally broke him down, where it was just a week ago, he took his own life. And how many times has this happened even with people that have been to war, where they've seen horrific acts and can't mentally be able to fight off their own demons and actually get so depressed where they feel like the only way out is to rub themselves out as well. And that question of why me? It's a good question, but his aunt gives him an answer that sometimes people that do face this type of adversities should look at it, that something really great or good can come out of it, and has put him in a projectile motion of looking to do great things. And even though he has a lot of humility and he thinks that some of the people that he's listening to had it maybe even worse off than him, boy, that's quite an accomplishment to be able to be that selfish and be able to say, hey, what you're going through is even worse, or you have more to overcome than I had to. And he's had 40 or 50 surgeries and is still fighting to recapture some of his own look. But the amount of people that helped him, he finds it that he has a duty and a purpose to helping others. And that's the greater goal of one's life, is to think beyond oneself, to be part of a community, to be part of a state, to be part of a nation, to be part of a people, and to show that you can make a difference, even if it's just one person at a time. And this podcasting thing, that's a really part of the modern era that you live in. Who knows what it'll be with your children or your children's children, what they'll come up next. But it's a way to communicate open minded without a script of having to act in a certain way, where people have a chance to express themselves with others in a really a wonderful fashion. You know what it's done for us, but it's almost like therapy for us, but it can be therapy for all your listeners and therapy for the person that's giving the story, where
Oh,
they have a
yeah.
chance to release themselves, and that also builds confidence when you can talk it out, and show that, even if it's just on a moment on the screen where you've put yourself out there, and if you do it enough times, it's almost like joining a new world of expression. So it's really wonderful. And I agree a little bit more with the auntie that nobody wishes that something like this can happen, obviously, but that great things can come out of this. And I think Thomas is on a great path of not only recovery for himself, but giving other people an opportunity to learn from his experiences and to be able to also overcome some of their own demons and to be able to be better people as well. I think there's a lot of side issues that come up in this also, where not losing your faith in God and knowing that there's a greater purpose than just dollars and cents, he has figured out also, and helping other people and doing more for others than we do for ourselves is actually makes you feel better. And that's one of the things that make me feel better when it comes to really having peace. He also summed it up. He kind of gave you a hint. Anytime I was extra stressed, I always lived on the East Coast. I just loved going to the beach, whether there was people there or not, or whether it was hot or not, watching the ocean. It really gives you a sense of timelessness. It always looks the same. It's something that you can count on to be stable in your life. It does give you a form of peace, seeing some of God's wonderful parts of nature, being on a high mountain and there's nobody there, just the wind and the trees and the mountains. Boy, that's very peaceful. We have so many fantastic views on this planet. Soon as I got to Israel, where did we go? I went to the Dead Sea, where what a soothing bath or swim, where it's a miracle healing, but also mentally, it just gives you so much relief to be in between those mountains and to see the water where it's blue and light blue and dark blue and purple and to see the mountains surrounding it. It's just, again, just a wonderment of the world. And it's very soothing, physically and mentally. And maybe that's what we need is that we have to be able to give ourselves a chance to have a way of being soothed, not just fit with physical things, but where we can feel good about ourselves and experience things that give us some mental relief also. And it doesn't have to necessarily be, just a piece of nature. Sometimes just, as you know, I get on the computer and I play games or different things. It takes my mind off of the normal routine. But not being involved with the market or with the business or with the family's issues, I love participating and taking on challenges, but let's do all of those things in a humane way. And let's do all these things where we can look beyond ourselves and see how we can reach out and be a positive influence on everyone around us. And where hopefully they reciprocate that so that we can build a future community on earth where we're not just trying to kill each other and hate each other. Let's see if we can have love and positivity win. Sometimes you can even do those beautiful things, but if people around you are very toxic and are not cooperating with you, you're better off finding and seeking out those that feel the warmth of your light. Then you have darkness. If it's blocked, it can't get through. Our life is too short to bang our heads against the wall. let's try to be positive with those that let the light in. And that's, I think, also a lesson, is that we have to not be fools about it and thinking that we can change the world, show a glowing light, and hopefully be around people that want to let the light in. Then we can all make beautiful music together.
I love it. You had a lot to say on that one.
Intergenerational dreams that were presented to me from my parents and grandparents that I was lucky to enjoy, and even listening to the stories even from Maureen's grandparents, and being able to carry on where we try to keep that path alive so that their values, their experiences can hopefully also be passed on to my children and my children's children, and that they'll do the same thing. So that we're trying very hard to have a continuum and a continuum of improvement. And it doesn't have to just be in dollars and cents. It can be in righteousness and wisdom too.
Thanks for listening. Now I think I'm going to go call my dad.
I'll say goodbye and see you the next time.
Thanks for listening to the Better Call Daddy Show. Join us weekly for new episodes and more daddy wisdom.
Better Call Daddy is good advice always.
And love you, Grandpa, and love you, Mommy.
That's so cute. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. You can also find special episodes on my YouTube channel, and you can listen on Apple Podcasts,
On Good Pods.
Spotify, Amazon Music, Alexa, or your preferred podcatcher. That's a wrap for now.